everyone, my name is Chloe, and today we're here to talk about the books that I read last week. So it has been a big reading week for me and my kids and just me in general. So we're just going to jump into it, and I'm going to talk about the middle grades first and then the adults. So if you just want to see adult books, I will have that time linked down below, and let's just get into it. So the first we read is Heather and the Highland Pony by Maggie Taylor, and this is a part of the Good and the Beautiful third grade curriculum. And so it is like a student reads, adult reads, student reads, adult reads, and then there's little vocabs and things. This is our third one that has been included in the curriculum, and I didn't love this one. However, I loved what it was trying to do. So this is about a girl named Heather and her brother, and one night their parents are captured, I guess, and they have this kit, like this map, and with supplies that has an X on it, and they have to go there to save their parents somehow. The whole premise did not make sense. Like, we were all like, what? That this doesn't make sense. But whatever, let's just buy into it. So they have to go up to the Shetland Islands and save their parents or whatever. Heather has dwarfism, and so she, like, that is discussed a lot, and how your body size, all of that is insignificant and not important. The Good and the Beautiful is a Christian curriculum, so there is some mention of God in here and their faith, and the journey gets rough, and they meet good people, and there's a lot of encounters and things talked about. It just was kind of slow, honestly. It was kind of slow, and definitely, like, the messages are kind of beaten over your head, but it's a middle grade. They're kind of supposed to do that. So overall, I would say it was like a 3-star. Then, this brings me great joy. We have gotten into the Nancy Drew Clue Crew series, and so I gave my daughter the first 8 of these, I think, for Christmas, and we decided to read them together. She could definitely read them independently, but we decided to read them together, and they're so fun. They're like 100 pages and very little pictures, but some pictures, and we're reading them every 2 days. And so, can you tell we've been watercoloring and painting? Sorry. Anyway, so the first one is Sleepover Sleuths. There's a big sleepover and a doll goes missing. The second is Scream for Ice Cream. There is an ice cream contest to create the best flavor, and one of the girls' recipes goes missing. And then Pony Problems. There's a pony that keeps getting out of the petting zoo, and we don't know how. So Nancy Drew and her 3 friends form the Clue Crew, the Nancy Drew Clue Crew, or the Clue Crew, not Nancy Drew Clue Crew, but the Clue Crew, and they try to solve all these. What I love about this, first of all, Nancy is 8 years old, so this is very appropriate for my 6-year-old. There's not a lot, like, there is some squabbles between all the girls, and definitely some, like, realistic 8-year-old stuff. However, it's not nasty. Like, they're not just awful kids, you know? And I also like that in most of these, I am going to slightly spoil the outcome, but there's not really, it's more misunderstandings that continue to happen. And so it really makes us think, like, should we jump to blaming people? Should we, because they make a suspect list, you know, they try to figure it out, and they're not overly blamey, but it's like, should we immediately assume the worst of people, or can we look at this from a different angle? And I really like that. And there we have the first 8 for sure, and then we have number 11. And my daughter's birthday is coming up, and she's asked for number 9, 10, and beyond. And so if you're looking to start with Nancy Drew and you've got 8-ish year old readers, these are a great place to start. Then these ones I read independently. These are both graphic novels, and they are the Cupcake Diaries graphic novels. I read one last week, so you've probably heard me talk about this, but I read number 2 and 3 this week. Mia in the Mix. So in the first book, there is a girl who gets kind of ditched. Her best friend ditches her to become in the popular girls club. Now, Mia kind of gets invited into that club, and Mia's torn between the two. Where does she, does she want the Cupcake Club or the Popular Girls Club, and how can she balance both? And so there's a lot of really good discussion around, like, friendship allegiance, but also cliques and how harmful they are, truthfully. She's also kind of stuck between her parents who are divorced. And so there's a lot of conversation around both of those things. Again, this is not one that I'm going to pass down to my daughter to read right now, because it just is middle school topics. You know, it's not necessarily inappropriate or anything. It just is middle school drama, popularity, all that kind of stuff is not something she's familiar with, and we don't need to introduce it now. Then the third one is a story that you've read 1,000 times, Emma on Thin Icing. And this is about Emma. So one of the girls' moms is getting married, and she asked them all to be junior bridesmaids, which I think is a little weird in the first place. But they go to pick dresses, and they pick these $250 dresses. And so now they're all supposed to buy them, which, come on. The whole premise of this one kind of had me like, really? That is a lot to ask. And Emma, her mom just lost her job. She's starting somewhere new. Schedules are weird. She has to babysit her brother a lot. Money is really tight. And so she is really stressed out because she can't afford to buy the dress. Yet she doesn't want to tell anybody. So she takes on dog walking business. She's trying to advertise their cupcake club and cupcake business and trying to make money so she can afford this dress. And of course, it all explodes in the end. And we all come clean and everything's great. But this one I will let my daughter read, because this is not set in the school setting at all. There's none of the popularity stuff, none of the clicky stuff. It's just her trying to figure it out. And so she's loving graphic novels. The Cupcake Diaries are a set of novels, of middle grade novels that we have some of on our shelf, but they have, just like with the Babysitter's Club and everything else, they have made graphic novels out of them, and they're really cute. And I've thoroughly enjoyed reading through the series. I'm going to read through as many graphic novels as they have, because personally I enjoy them. And then I kind of know when it's appropriate to give them to her. So those are all the middle grades that I read. Now let's get into the adults. So the first one is one that I actually read last week and forgot to include. It is Saving CC Honeycutt by Beth Hoffman. So this is a tiny book that was at the library book sale. There were multiple copies of it. Every time I go, there's multiple copies. And so I was really nervous to pick it up. But I think Krista from Books and Jams maybe read this and said it was good. It also has almost a 4-star rating on Goodreads. So I decided to give it a go. And this is about a girl named CC Honeycutt, as you might guess, who her mom struggles with like maybe some schizophrenia, a whole bunch of things. And then her mom tragically dies. And so she has to go live with her aunt in Savannah, Georgia. My favorite part of this book, honestly, is Savannah. This made me want to go to Savannah so bad. And it's a very Southern book. And I will say the beginning really had me hooked, and I really enjoyed the ending. The middle was not for me. It was just so slow. It was so slow. And so this book is about her going to live with her aunt, getting immersed in this Southern community, all the kind of side characters and the quirky things they get up to. However, like saving her, I don't feel like she really needed saved, and I don't feel like they really did anything to save her per se. And so it's kind of a weird title, but I enjoyed it enough. If you like slow books with like a Southern tone and kind of quirky side characters, pick this up. But otherwise, next is In the Field of Grace by Tessa Afshar. So this is a story of Ruth, and it's a biblical fiction, of course. It expands on the story of Ruth, and this is primarily her romance with Boaz. And not even romance per se, but her meeting him, and their kind of like secrets, affinity for each other. And this obviously is fiction. We don't get a lot of this. We do get their journey, her and Naomi's journey, and some of that. But this is what I want Ruth to be. You know, we don't know a ton of Ruth from the Bible, but she is just kind-hearted and just such a do-gooder and just so wonderfully wholesome. And I was totally shipping the relationship with her and Boaz, and I really, really enjoyed this. So I will definitely be picking up more Tessa Afshar soon. Then Coming Home by Brittany Griner. So I knew nothing of this. I was sent this book by a publisher, and the publisher a while ago. And this is about Brittany Griner, who is a WNBA player who also played overseas and in the off season. And so one of the times she played in Russia, and one of the times she was going back to Russia, she had a little bit of medicinal marijuana on her that she had prescribed to her lawfully. It was a tiny, tiny amount, and yet the Russian government imprisoned her for a very long time, and it was awful. And this is her story, and it's her story in that, as well as just she is a very large black woman who looks like a man, and it's her talking about what that is like to walk in those shoes. And you guys, my heart was breaking for her. The things that were said to her both in the prisons and like that she recalled is just awful. It's just awful. And so we get a lot of her history, her kind of relationship with her dad and her parents, and just her story. And it's really hard. Like, I don't feel like my voice is the one you need to hear in reviewing this book. Truthfully, I am not in the minority on any of those things. And, she is gay. I think she identifies as lesbian. She's married to a woman. And so she's just encountered a lot of hardship. And then this, like, 90 days, or I can't remember, it was more than a few months in the Russian prison system was just awful. So I did not enjoy reading this, and she does find God, and her wife is very religious, and so she found God and really just spent her time kind of reading the Bible. And the tone of this book, like, it is definitely not Christian. There's a fair amount of cursing and kind of crude discussions, and yet it's interwoven with these spiritual nuggets, and so that kind of felt weird. But overall, I think this is definitely something that is really important to know about, because there are multiple Americans and things still overseas, kind of prisoners of countries like Russia. And it was awful to read, but very interesting. Okay, next is the Last Original Wife by Dorothea Benton Frank. And this one, I think I've read her before, and she does a lot of like women's fiction, romance kind of things. This one was not for me. So this is about a woman, Leslie, and she is the last original wife. So all of her husband's friends and coworkers have left their wives for younger women, or things have happened to their marriage. And so she's the last original wife, and she gets treated like garbage by her husband, just garbage. And so one day she says enough, and she goes to, I can't remember, Charleston, I think, to go stay with her brother, who her husband was awful. Like, he did not let her see her brother because her brother was gay. And so she went to live with him, kind of disappeared. And it's her refinding herself. And her husband was so awful that, like, there was kind of like some, will she go back? Will she not? She was kind of internally debating about that. And it was so like, do not, if you go back, I am done reading this book, because he was awful. And the way they talk about their kids is awful. They have 2 grown kids who haven't made much of themselves, basically because she does everything for everybody. And they talk about their kids in such a horrible way about like their contributions to society. But I think the message in general of like mothers overextending themselves and everybody being so reliant on the mother to do anything is valid. But I also think like this was just, her husband was awful. So it was not a pleasant read. The beginning, I almost DNF'd it, honestly, because the whole beginning is finding out that she's the last original wife. So we're hearing so much gossip and drama, and she's from Atlanta, so it is Southern, kind of these elite women. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend. Then we have The Family You Make by Jill Shalvis. So this is a part of her Sunrise something series. I don't know. It's the first in a series, and it is about a couple who meets on a gondola in the middle of a snowstorm as it's about to go down. And so they are stuck. Hold on. Anyway, we're on thin ice here, but they are stuck on this gondola. The one in front of them has gone down, and so they are like in this survivalist thing. They end up obviously getting rescued, but as that will happen, that bonds you, and so they become kind of friends. And while they're in the gondola, he calls his mom basically to say goodbye, and instead of saying goodbye, he just chit chats with her and says he's with this new girlfriend. And so she is so ready for him to like be committed to somebody, so she's super excited. So when they survive, they decide to fake date. Now what's in it for her, she is a traveling nurse basically, and who has no family, no ties. She's ironically in the same town that her grandfather is in. Her grandfather who kind of abandoned her when she was like 8 years old. And so because her parents had died, everything. So she has no family, but of course she's going to kind of reconcile and make right with her grandpa and have a romance. He's got this big Hallmark happy family that is just all in your business, the kind of stereotypical large family with siblings and all of that. So it's their romance, and I loved the way the family really welcomed our main character, what was her name? Jane. And just they really accepted her, and I enjoyed this book quite a bit, and it definitely has the snowy vibe. So Yeah, definitely recommend. And then a couple more. Peace, Hope, and Healing for the Anxious Mama's Heart by Becky Thompson. I cannot remember for the life of me who was talking about either this book or a book by Becky Thompson, but I went on my library and requested everything they have. They don't have most of them, and so there's just a couple. This, though, spoke to me in a way that I have not felt seen in a book in so long. So this is about anxiety and being a Christian walking through anxiety. I've made no secret of the fact that I have generalized anxiety always, but postpartum this time it's been awful. And as in the Christian community, a lot of times anxiety is viewed as a lack of faith. And I've even said it myself, you can't have faith and fear at the same time. So if you're feeling fearful and anxious, replace it with faith. And yes, it is, but anxiety is not a lack of faith. It is something beyond our control and something that we live in a broken world. God made us, and the original sin happened, and so he is with us through all of this, whether it's a physical thing, a chemical, whatever the case may be, why you're having anxiety. You're not alone in it, and you're not a bad Christian because of it. And I'm looking the healing that can come, definitely very practical steps to kind of overcoming anxiety and different lies that anxiety will tell us, and Christian truths that we can have, and also how to walk with others in your anxiety and their anxiety, and how being an anxiety sufferer does not mean you can't help others. In fact, it gives you a crazy level of empathy. And there's so much about this book. One thing that I have thought about daily since I've read it is she's talking about miracles, and miracles are miracles not miracles if they're short-lived. And the way she made me think about that was so interesting, because in my head, it's like, okay, it's a miracle if I'm cured from anxiety, never feel anxiety again. But she challenges you to think like, no, it's a miracle when you have a day that's less anxious, or when you can find joy in something and not be fearful, or when you, something that would have stressed you out doesn't. That is a little miracle. Let's stop and praise him for those little miracles and just glean on to the next one. And so it was so good. So good. 1 second, and then I will tell you about a couple more. Okay, and then the last one is Pretend You Don't See Her by Mary Higgins Clark. So I'm reading this for Winterween, and I'm doing a vlog over on Patreon where you will get more of my thoughts. So if you are not on Patreon and want to be, it's always down below, and I'm vlogging my experience with Winterween. So this is basically a cat and mouse chase. This is about a woman who's a real estate agent. She witnesses a crime, and then it's a cat and mouse chase of the killer trying to get to her, because at this crime she takes some incriminating things, documents, and runs with them. And I just think like it was okay. I would say this is maybe 3 stars. It was so stupid, honestly. Like, first of all, why do you naively do that? And then you're like, she intentionally does it. She doesn't do it like naively. The naive part is she thinks like she won't be targeted. And so she takes the stuff, and of course the killer's after her. She goes in the witness protection program, and he finds out information about her, and it's a cat and mouse chase. Now, I was saying this is written in like the late 90s, and I'm not sure how steeped in reality this is, because it is definitely not realistic as of today, because everywhere is giving him information about her. So he finds out her fake name and goes to the gym where she goes, and they give out her address. She goes to the airport. He goes and talks to like one of the clerks, and they say exactly what flight she's on, and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I mean, in 1997, I was 8 years old, so I'm not sure if that was like actually like if everybody was that loosey-goosey with information, but I'm venturing to say no. And so it felt very unrealistic. There's the showdown in the end. Everything's hunky-dory. Very 3-star, very basic. If you want to spend a little bit of time, with a kind of old school author, this was a fun enough ride, but it's not going to shock you. So that is everything that I read last week. It was a big week. It was a good week. Overall, I got some stuff cleared off my shelves, and progress was made. And I'm really enjoying reading some graphic novels here and there. So it's making me feel productive and good. And overall, it's been a great week. So let me know how your week was. What was the best thing you read? And we'll see you in the next one.